Hello everyone, welcome to Pommy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe. It does really help the channel out, and we're ploughing through the subs. And I'm going to move the live stream for the members on Monday. I have had a horrible night. I haven't been very well at all night, and I feel as rough as a badger's bottom. So to try and give you the entertainment and the energy levels, I will be back on Monday. So we'll count this as Monday's normal upload, and we'll do something special with you all. So that extends the prize. We're doing a giveaway for those interested, a sports shirt of your choice. So jump on Monday and we'll give it away then. Probably about 8:30 we'll aim for, and we'll have a bit of a chit chat and a chin wag. So thank you very much for that. And let's get into the Carlton game. So Carlton went down what? Quite big. And I've slept on it. I've rewatched it again. It's probably why I don't feel so hep. But 43 points. It was a tough one to stomach, really, in the terms of it's hard to know what to take out of there. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to know what you look at and what you think about. Carlton just didn't look at the races, did they, at times? And it's hard to think, because I know that there's 3 trains of thought. There's practice games don't mean anything. There's practice games mean anything. There's my train of thought where the result is secondary. It's looking for process. And I think that's what the great teams do. Fergie used to say, do you know what I mean? Bad teams chase titles in February. And he's, Taste Chadborough. Fergie used to say, poor teams chase titles in pre-season. And he's spot on with that, because I don't think it's the point that you actually look for in pre-season. You're trying to look at getting something out of it. I mean, it gave me shades of Melbourne versus Carlton last year, where we were 60 points up and they only came back into it when we started playing Williamson at full forward and Luke Parks at centre half forward, because we just started KOing injuries. It felt like we were Melbourne, where we were never really in it. And there was glimpses in the second where the boys looked okay and they got back on top, and parts of the third they did, but it didn't look like there was really any commitment or energy to expel. Now, I can only do that conjecturally, and so can we all. We're not a coach. We don't know. I mean, for all we know, Voss might have come out and said, play like it's a granny, lads. And if that's the case, it's worrying. But I'm kind of going to judge it just on the merit. That I think the most practical way is don't comment on things that are conjecture, comment on what you can see. So let's break down what we did see. I mean, the big thing for me was you saw a lot's been made on our dominance from the centre, and they were better. Now, yes, there was no Cripps, but it's a concern when you can see that when your one wood is taken away. It was weird. Carlton scored just under 30 points from forward half intercepts, which is half of our total. But the way that they transitioned once they got past that first wall of defence was probably the easiest thing. Carlton dominated the hit-outs 43-23, but then got spanked. Clearances 40-41. And then losing 33 points to 15 from that area, which is Carlton's one wood. And it was interesting because last year our forward pressure was strong as well. It was literally kind of like seeing a real condensed version of last year, particularly with the ease of which once they got out of that first wall that deploys from about 30 to 60, you saw once they switched it from there, that was chaos. And we saw Adelaide did that really successful to us. St Kilda did that really successfully to us. And it was a weird game, 11% running on from the mark, where usually Voss's staple is 22, and that carries over to Brisbane. That is a staple of Voss's game. It was really a different thing. Now, we can conjecturalize and say that Carlton were looking to try and play keep ball for 4 quarters, slow it down, because that is definitely something that the team struggle with. Do I buy into that? Probably 5% of me does. It did feel like it was literally trying to get this game out of the way. And it's interesting because Voss has made off, and Anson mentioned it after the game that it was a real big onus to play Collingwood and Sydney. And you can only conjecturalize why that is. Collingwood, probably because you'd say it's the 2 most disappointment losses for the boys that were on top of it for large parts of that game, and they let it slip because Collingwood totally broke down our procedure. And Sydney, you would say, because it was probably our best win, in fairness, and that was showcased by quick ball movement, stun and run, and that looked really good. I would also say St Kilda would have been a game I'd love to have played, because I felt like St Kilda was a bit like this game. You look at the scoring shots, it's almost even. Do you know what I mean? There's only, 19 scoring shots versus 22. 7-12 plays 15-7. If Carlton flip that, do you know what I mean? The scoreboard looks a lot more presentable. And that's the big thing for me, that St Kilda is always going to ring out, because inefficiency killed it. And it wasn't just inefficiency goal kicking. A lot of them shots were shots to nothing. I think it's a flawed stat, shots at goal. Very flawed stat in the terms of a lot of them were just chances, a couple that just ran behind from major punts. One of them was a Lockie Cowan 60-metre bomb in there into that no one took a mark on. It's a tough one. And to look at it as a whole, you don't really get anything out of that game. Do you know what I mean? Apart from the fact that they played 4 quarters, they got out of it. Hewitt had his moments where he looked okay. 13 tackles. I felt like, though, in the clearance situation, he was partly to blame, because Pitternet and TDK tapped it in the hot zone. The boys ran past it, and it was almost like they were focusing on giving it up to stop it coming out. And that's just an observation by eye. Do you know what I mean? Matty Kennedy was just tireless in his effort. He did the right thing. I would say him and Doc were 2 guys that I was very impressed with. Actually worked out it was wet and looked for meters gained over trying to do passes. Doc, though, at times guilty of that corridor kick and trying to take too much on. There was a lot of misplaced short handballs. And at times, Carlton got really handball happy, particularly, again, not where it counts. In the guts, they got happy. And the first goal, for me, is everything that's wrong with the football club. It was a real sloppy effort at clearance. It came in, easy rebound 50, where Carlton can build to attack. They choose the one option, miss kick, and uncontested. The guy is on his own, lands 20 metres short. They turn over the ball, they bring it back in, and then you had 2 minutes 30 of pressure before they eventually broke the dreadlock. And he kind of took the wind out of the sails, and we've seen that quite a lot about the boys. A big takeout for me was how far the line is from the forward to the middle. And we talk about this a lot on this show. It was really exaggerated, this game, and it allowed too much of that kick over that first line. Once they got the confidence to do that, which Carlton did pressure them in that first half, from the third, where the pressure really dropped off from us. And I felt like Sydney were cruising in the third and the fourth. I felt both sides in the fourth just ran that clock out. It was really poignant of how easy it is to cut the lines of Carlton's defensive structure. And I try not to take too much into it, because if we play like that, with that structure, with a team that's intense, and Carlton match that intensity, that's a big loss. That's a big loss in the grand scheme of things. That's an Adelaide type game where you just don't matter what you do, you ain't going to win it. I try and take out that round 1 is 2 weeks away, so they can put this to bed. And Melbourne went, 12-0 after their diabolical performance, which I would say is equal. The only difference is Sydney didn't shelve all their players and start playing Jake Lloyd at full forward, which may have helped, may have not. Do you know what I mean? So I felt the scoreline flattered us. I thought we were really off, and it's a hard one to pick people that I liked, really. I mean, Ollie Hollands was industrious, 440 metres gained for his 17 touches. I really liked his game. I really liked Lockie Cowan as well, really strong defensively. Tinkotter, towards the last half, I felt like he was the only person who put in 4 quarters, if I'm honest. Some worries, though, like Lewis Young, double fist. And it's them things that even if the boys were just ploughing it out, if the mandate was don't get injured, let's just say that's true. Some of them things were habitual, which is the last thing I want to see them. That double fist to the only guy in the goal square that happened to be up there, who happened to be a St Kilda player, is them decision-making that the football club does a lot of. Carlton Football Club is famous on that. In the end, Hansen came out and said it was a good audit for the squad, and I think it was, in the terms of that. Honestly, it shows that if Carlton don't apply themselves, how bad they are. And I think Buckley nailed it, that their best is good enough. Their worst, do you know what I mean? Carlton 2018 would roll them. Do you know what I mean? And I think that is the big thing. And it's good to get it out in pre-season because, you know, there is a timeline where I could have seen us winning this by 40, doing what Sydney did, moving into round one, and then having this performance and losing by 80, which would be catastrophic because they've got, it's not 4 points. I'm a firm believer that unlike EPL, where we have 8 or 12 practice games, which are Mickey Mouse, by the way, they are horrendous. No one takes practice games seriously in any league, I don't think, apart from the bad teams like we discussed, that you actually see that there's only such a small microid in AFL that there is kind of a school of thought that you've got to have some kind of level of seriousness to it. And it's hard to see what they took out on that game because for me, the biggest takeout is our second 22 with all the players missing. Simply not good enough. I thought Dow has just, for me, he was shocking. 92 metres gained, 15 touches. He looked poor and he did a tagging job, ironically, on Golden, which great tough love, great lesson. But why are you giving him a tagging role? Because he ain't going to be a tagger. Physicality isn't his strength. Do you know what I mean? That's not what he's known for. So it felt like that was lackluster. Ed Kerno, for me, he for the first time ever looked unfit. Plowman showed what happens when you're a good team. You need your defenders to be almost impregnable. And he showed the pressure when you got him kicking in. It's kind of not his fault. He was having to play the intercept role, which is the opposite of his job because of injuries. There's a few questions there. The rucks, although they did well in hit-outs, one of them is being commanding $1 million salary. Based on that, TDK is nowhere near 400k, let alone $1 million. Pitternet, I liked his third quarter. I thought he started to dominate and really do the physical stuff. But around the ground, the guy runs like my nana. Do you know what I mean? And she's been dead since what? When I was 16. So we're going way back one. And it's one of them things. It's one of them things. It's hard to give you anything constructive because I might as well have just read a paper for 2 hours and I would have probably got more out. As far as things go, the only positives I can take are the kids. They look a sort, particularly Hollins and Cowan look really a good sort. And the forward pressure creates turnovers when it works. The problem is when they do drop off like they did in the first quarter, so easy to cut through us. And we need an interceptor because when Young's doing it, he doesn't play the ball quick enough. And we need someone across high half forward that isn't Jesus that plays the ball in quicker as well. It was funny when Hollins was there, it was quick. There was that lovely passage of play where Ed Kerno kicked it off the kick from Jesus, who took ages, bounced the kick. We got the ball back. Ed Kerno swiftly kicked it to the left. And it was none other than Blake Acres who ran, took off and played the quick ball, got the one out, Carlton scored from it. And it's just them little things of knowing when to go. But Carlton really did have a situation this week, I felt, where they weren't going to go. Do you know what I mean? It felt like there was a real mandate in slow it down. And it'll be interesting to see. I'm sure we will find out. We found out about Melbourne 6 to 12 weeks into the year. I'm sure it'll come to light. And that maybe that's king of wishful thinking. But all in all, I was sorely disappointed with what I saw. I'm going to be totally honest. There's not much you can take out of that going into round one other than that they didn't get injured and the kids look all right. I was very disappointed in the second wave. I felt O'Brien was horrendous when Holland's doing that, because I think that now creates an unnecessary question. For me, you've got to play on form. Holland's is better. Zach Fisher had his moments, but he looks the shell of a player last year who got on ball time. I do like Doc going into the midfield because he was one of the few that got the ball going forward, and I think that's important. But a lot of questions now have been asked that I didn't have a week ago, because the team that played Collingwood would have beaten this team by about 50. So, and I didn't think they were going hard. I thought they were going 75, 80. So the way I look at it, we'll judge it on its merit. It was a bad game, a lot to work on. 2 weeks though, they've got to work on it, haven't they? Because on the 16th, 12 days' time, they play a hungry, rejuvenated Tigers in front of 9,500k. So, audit, Hansen, start fucking auditing, because they've got to get that intensity. And that says to me, a great lesson, if there is a lesson that you'll take out of that, is when Carlton don't switch on, they're fucking horrendous. And we can't have that when there's 4 points on the line. But let me know in the comments what you guys and girls thought. I'm not too disheartened. I'm more miffed, because I think maybe a selfish miffed. I wanted to see more. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to have something to cling on to. Maybe the time for clinging on to stuff has passed in the terms of we are a good side. Time will tell. But let me know what your takeouts were. Are you just a practice game crew? I mean, I don't know what to think. But let me know in the comments. Much love. I will see you Monday with the members live stream. Till next time.